okay, by different algorithms. That's what's discipling them. One person's Instagram.
All right, this is the last one before I actually get some work done today. No, they're not. They're not being discipled by algorithms, and this is a big blind spot in the thought leaders of the church and kind of the parachurch ministries of today. Is that they take things at face value and they're not willing to kind of deal with what's actually happening or what's actually happened, because what's not happening online is discipleship. Discipleship is a personal relationship where you have a disciple. And that person is, being affected by the other person in a communicative way, back and forth, in a progress towards like a more mature state or a more knowledgeable state. Because the internet is a thing, not a place, that doesn't actually happen online. What happens online is people make content, and that content stands as bits of information to learn from, not to be taught by, to learn from, or to learn of, maybe is the better way to think of it. And that's what all these content creators are doing. The podcasters, the influencers, all of them, they're making content so that people can learn of them. It's an attention economy. I mean, Gary Vee's been talking about this forever. But that's what it is. It is bits of information so that you can learn of or learn from. It is not teaching. Teaching happens in a different set of circumstances. It happens more in person. It can happen through digital means. You could have like a Zoom call, which is entirely digital, and be teaching someone because there's like back and forth communication between individuals. It can facilitate that. But that's not what Carrie's talking about here. Carrie is talking about algorithms being the one that's discipling people. And that's just not happening. It's not happening because that's not what's happening. What's happening is people are going to screens. They're going to video content or like online content, digital content to learn things. And here's the kicker, the blind spot that almost every talking head in the church spheres about technology, talking about digital discipleship and online discipleship doesn't want to deal with. It's our fault. We're the ones who caused this. We're the ones who did, televangelist ministries and like television churches the second it became a hot ticket and the second we could. Why? Not because television should be church, but because we thought, we can use it. We'll do church this way. We're the ones who did video multi-sites before there was streaming online video online. We would make DVDs or VHS tapes and then like speed them to multi-site campuses. Mars Hill does like a whole video thing about this, back like how the early days of Mars Hill worked. They would do this, they would do the first church service, make the DVD or the tape, bring it to the next, the nearby campuses at a later time in the day so that they could watch the sermon. They could do like local singing and stuff like that, but they could do video teaching so that Mark Driscoll could like disciple people in multiple locations while never leaving a single location. Like they would have a broadcast campus and then, satellite campuses, which is common language in the multi-site movement. We did that. We're the ones who taught people, hey, look at the screen, and that's how you get discipled. We did it so bad that at at mega churches, there are screens for people in the room with the person they're supposed to be discipled by, because they can't get close enough to the person to realistically and in a technologically free way get taught by them. It has to be through a sound system. It has to be through speakers. It has to be through cameras and a screen, unless you're in like the front row that's usually reserved for special guests in the worship team. Like we're the ones who are doing this. We're the ones who told an entire generation of church during the pandemic that you can do church through a screen. Okay, this is our fault. We have taught the church that you can do online discipleship, that you can do digital discipleship, because we didn't realize that you can't do discipleship. And when it was a good thing for us, we just hopped on board. And now it's a bad thing. Now there are players in this game that are better than us, more attractive than us, saying things that we are unwilling to say, and they're winning. We're no longer D1 players in a league where we're the only team that knows how to play. Now we have to compete. What Carrie touches on here is like you could compete, and actually, yeah, you could compete, but no one actually wants to. Or you can focus on the basics and kind of like retreat away from that, which is also another option. Here's how to know if you're doing digital ministry properly. And this is going to sound wild, okay? But like, we can't compete on the places where people are trying to compete for the same kind of resources for just attention. But that's not our mission. That's not what we're supposed to be doing as a church. We're supposed to reach lost people with the gospel. We're supposed to reach sinners with the gospel. And are we doing that, or are we just trying to compete for attention the way that every one of these platforms is competing for attention? We all want a podcast that's as famous and successful as Joe Rogan. So we copy Joe Rogan and we wonder why it's not as famous. Well, because he's better at it. We can't out Joe Rogan. That's not going to happen. We can't out Instagram the Instagram models. We can't out TikTok the TikTokers. We can't do any of that stuff. We can try to compete and we will only be second rate because we're trying to compete. So why don't we actually do what we're supposed to do? Why don't we actually send the gospel digitally, if we think this is a place, to places where the gospel is not being preached? If you could safely, without exposing anyone in the process to the dangers, put all your digital content as a church's online ministry onto any pornographic site that had the ability to host videos, would you? That's where the sinners are. That's where like the gospel is not being preached. That's Corinth, if you want to put it in biblical terms. But no, we don't do that. That's because we don't understand what online ministry is. We don't understand what the online environment is. We just take it as it is and then wonder why we stop being the best players of this game. Because like there's people who are playing for keeps. There's people who know that it's just attention and are willing to do anything for attention. And we're not, because we're willing to do the gospel and the gospel only. And that's why Carey retreats to the gospel. It's like we need to preach the gospel faithfully in these churches. Yeah, that's a given. We should have always been doing that. And we've stopped doing that by trying to do online anything, by technologically anything. We stopped doing what the church is inherently supposed to be doing. And then we find ourselves having participated in an environment that like we were never probably meant to do. And we're wondering why we're no longer effective anymore. And then we want to accuse the people who are effective at that at basically cheating. Like, oh, they're discipling. They're not supposed to be discipling our church. We're supposed to be discipling our church. They're not supposed to be the talking head on a screen that's telling us, telling our people how to think and what's true and all that. We're supposed to be the talking head on a screen doing that. No, you're supposed to be a person in community with the title pastor, telling people who are your congregation how to live in community together, how to exercise their gifts, how to understand their Bibles, and how to learn more about their Christian life. That's what's supposed to, and no technology needs to be present for that. Absolutely none. And the reason that it's being affected by these like online influencers, this digital discipleship, is because we taught them to look there first. It was us first. It was not them now. It was us first. And now we have to, like, after chasing the sheep towards the open gate, now we got to go get them. That's the situation that we're actually in. Not this one where we're like, oh, all these influencers hopped over the fence. No, we left the gate wide open because we thought that was the best way to get sheep into the churches. And it turns out it's the easiest way to lose sheep.